Coincidentally, I'm going to start by saying when I was 8 years old, my favorite thing in the world to do, sit on my back or lie on my back in my living room in front of the TV, nice after school snack sitting on my belly, head propped up. I watched the golden age of cartoons. And by golden age, I mean these were G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, and these were first runs, no repeats. And we would go to school and talk about these cartoons that we saw for the very first time. I saw the introduction of Destro. You just saw it on YouTube. And on this particular Thursday, late afternoon, I was lying in my favorite spot while my dad and my mom were in the kitchen next to us discussing the state of their marriage. And the state of their marriage was under some heavy conversation, discussion, because Sunday my mom had kicked my dad out. And so he had been coming back each afternoon, each evening to discuss this. And the discussions, let's not sugarcoat it, they were loud and vigorous. And on Thursday, they went violent. And that night ended with my mom shouting, "Get out, get out, get out," and my dad leaving and us packing our stuff. And we finished packing our things that next morning, and we threw everything that we owned into a pickup truck. And I saw the bruises on my mom's neck and face for the first and last time, and we ran away. And when we ran away, we didn't run far. We ran off to some family friends that had a big house, and they already had 2 foster kids of their own in a town next to us, and I guess they figured they could foster another family. And things were pretty good. These people were huge-hearted folks, and I put myself in that situation and think about that and doing that same thing, wonder if I could do that same thing, bring this kind of situation into a house, and they did. But of course, things changed at that moment. And for me, some things that had changed. I no longer obviously walked to school because we were miles and miles away, but my mom was, it was important to my mom that I finished out that year. So I still went to the same school. I no longer went to recess. I no longer went out for lunch because of the threats that my father had made to my mom about never seeing me again if he saw me. I no longer went to my friends' houses for the fear that what would happen or what might happen if Dad knew that I went to a friend's house and picked me up from there. Obviously, I wasn't walking home from school, and I wasn't seeing Mom a lot anymore. She was in mid-20s at that point, and she had to get her first job, and her first job was midnights at Dunkin' Donuts. And when she was home, she slept a lot. And so I got through school, and when school ended, we had to move again because there were more escalations and there were more things going on. And this time we moved a little farther, about 30 miles farther, to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And I'm 9 now, but at 9, that still sucked a lot because Grandma and Grandpa were old, and their house smelled old, and it was quiet, and there wasn't even a TV in the house. So I didn't watch the golden age of cartoons much then. It sucked even worse for Mom because I found out years later that she lived with Dad because Grandpa had kicked her out when she was pregnant with me at 17. So I'm sure that homecoming was as difficult for her as it was for me. This is a really sad story, I'm sorry, but we'll pick it up a little bit, all right? I know I can tell a sad story in Detroit because I know y'all got my back and I have yours. So life moved on. Grandparents moved out, which was good. It's probably because we moved in, but that's great. And once they were gone, life sort of assumed some sort of normal cadence and pace. And as I grew up, in some ways, I actually thrived from these experiences that I had. And things that I did as a result of the things that I had learned helped. Things that I had learned from my experience and from my ongoing is to control every emotion, because emotion's used against you. So don't let any emotion out unless you've decided that that emotion needs to be shown. And to analyze and understand everything fully before reacting in any way. Some other things I had learned is today is the only thing there is. Don't worry about tomorrow. If you get through today, then you can worry about tomorrow. And expect no help from anyone. It's all on you. And if you can get through and do something by yourself, then do it. Otherwise, it won't happen. And as a list right now, that sounds pretty damn bleak, and I know we're all thinking that's a terrible list. I was 12 years old. I thought this was pretty good wisdom, and it was working for me. For instance, I was 9, 10, and we had no money, and so instead what I did was I worked my butt off. Anyone have a paper route when you were a kid? You don't really do it much because it's an adult job sort of now, but a paper route for a 10-year-old is every single day spending 2 to 3 hours delivering papers around the neighborhood and then banging on strangers' doors every couple of weeks asking them for money, and then when you get that money, you make it. This was a really, really hard job. And I did it for years until I got other jobs. And I did it because there was no other choice. I wanted things, and to get those things I needed money, so I had a paper route and I kept with it. I had not adjusted very well to my new school, mostly because I expected all this to go away and for us to go back to my old school for a while. And so by the time I realized that wasn't happening, I'd already become the kid that didn't want to have any friends and didn't like anyone and was really, really mean. So in return, I got the same treatment back. And because of that, I turned to machines when I was younger, specifically computers, and hooked up my clone to a modem, to a BBS, and met people there. And from there, I learned about things like the Merit Network, which was the internet back in the late 80s and early 90s, and hacked on that, and learned Linux. All these great technology things that still provide a fairly decent living for us right now. Things were working based on these rules that I'd laid out. When I was a teenager, I got a license I could finally drive, so I had some freedom. And these rules of don't expect any help and show no emotion and analyze every single thing before you react to it, they were a perfect entry to a life of juvenile, criminal, teenage crime. Because that sets you up like nothing else to do really, really ridiculous and dangerous and stupid things as a teenager than having this list of values and way of life inside of you. Luckily, that didn't last long after a bunch of close calls. But, when I was 18, my mom moved to Florida, and I didn't even blink because I could do everything by myself. That's what I'd learned, and I expected no help, and I didn't expect anything from anyone. And job after job and thing after thing happening in my life reinforced this notion that what I was doing was working, and these things were correct. And I never even questioned this set of values, which were cold and bleak and inhuman. And it's a funny coincidence. Today is the 10th birthday of my oldest daughter, same age as Asia. And I remember 10 years ago today, holding that little pink newborn, and you can hold them right in that one hand, right? When they're first born, they're amazingly small. I remember looking down and just being so happy, really, really happy. And I'm waiting to be overwhelmed with this emotion and just feel overcome with the joy that I knew that I should feel and I wanted to feel, and everything around me would lead me to believe that I'd feel, and I didn't. I was really happy, but I was never overwhelmed. I was never overcome. And that started making me think, why? And what was it? And why could not I become overwhelmed with emotion in this, which is the most important and this one of the greatest moments of my life? And I analyzed and sought to understand, because that's still all I knew how to do. And I became to realize that the things that I had done to protect myself as a child from the things that were going on, and which still were with me, and which had seemed to serve me really, really well, and given me success in many different ways, it was a shell, and it was a thing that prevented me from feeling the deep lows, and I was very grateful for that. And that same thing prevented me from feeling the deep highs and the greatest heights. And I was living my life with the ends cut off. And I was listening to music with no bass and no treble. And after a lot of soul searching, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I began to try and figure out what I would do to fix this brokenness. Thank you very much for letting me tell this story, guys. So it was a hard conclusion. It took a lot of soul searching, and it was incredibly scary to think about undoing any of it or not doing things the same way, because while I'd seen success, and these things had guided me through many experiences. They'd also shielded me from really, really terrible experiences that I was terrified of going through again and fully feeling. And when I realized that I would go through that, I panicked. And the only thing that helped me through that was that pink newborn. And if we were in the 80s, a montage would start playing right now, and it would show, because it's me, Aha, maybe Depeche Mode or some kind of European synth pop in the background. And it would be me trying different things, exploring, putting on new personalities, putting them off, all of that to try and discover how to feel real. And what I quickly became aware of is these weren't replacements, and I wasn't fixing brokenness. What I needed to do was to add on to what I already had. And what I needed to understand was the things that I learned how to do as a child that got me through situations that I wouldn't wish upon any child in the world. Those things were part of me and not to be surgically removed. But as a child, I had so little control of the situation that I had to do things that were internal only. And as an adult, I no longer had to do those things that were internal only. And as soon as I stopped trying to do surgery on my head to remove those things, and as soon as I started instead trying to add on, life got a lot better. And I realized it would have been easier if I just got a time machine. And if I had a time machine, I would put this letter in it to myself at 18 that I wrote, and it would explain everything, because I didn't want to go through this work. I still don't, but I will forever. And the letter would say, "Dear Nathan, in 20 years, people will start calling you Nate." And let them earlier, because it's sort of cool. I mean, Nate, Nathan, like, do it. But things are going good for you, and some cat in a few years, Jim Collins, is going to start telling every business person who buys business books that good is the enemy of great, and he's sort of right. You can be great, and you want to be great, but you'll never be great if you don't take care of your business first. You've wrapped yourself up in this ironclad cocoon of emotional safety. And right now, at 18, that cocoon is shiny and safe and pretty great. But Nate, the cocoon is dark. We need sunlight if we're going to survive. We need sunlight if we're going to grow. And without light, you're going to wither and die. And how do I know this, Nate? Because I'm you. And you want an example? 2 years ago, when you were 16, Nate, and an ex-girlfriend called you, and we had an awkward conversation, and she apologized and forced you to apologize back, and everything is okay with us, and yes, it's fine, and she committed suicide that night. You didn't do anything about it because you didn't allow it to affect you, Nate. And that is the worst thing of all, to go through life-changing experiences and not get the wisdom and the change. Because who knows, Nate, you may have become incredibly sympathetic or empathetic or intelligent about teenage suicide, and you might have made a change in this world. You might have been empathetic at that moment, and you might have drove over there. Who knows what might happen, but the point is, nothing will ever happen if you don't allow these things, and you're going to have 50 different examples in the next 20 years to affect you and change you and guide you. So Nate, you got to get a move on today, and you got to start this, because I'm going to tell you what, in 10 years it's a lot harder, and you don't want to teach your kids the same skills that you were taught as a child, Nate. P.S. Call Mom more often. You're a jerk, especially birthdays and Mother's Day. And P.P.S. Nate, before February of 2005, beg, borrow, and steal everything you can, because you want to buy as much stock in this company called Apple as you possibly can. I'm serious, it's going to look risky, Nate, but do it. And then all I got to do is find a time machine, which if you study the time machines, and I do, you'll know that if one is ever created, then I will find it, because it's inevitable. And I got to drop that in there and give it to that 18-year-old or any other 18-year-old who needs a letter. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.